So what inspired me to do this? What brought out this idea of wearing chains? It's kind of funny because it really happened in just an instant. The whole idea came out and I decided what I was going to do, but there was definitely something brewing in my head, kind of a conditions of possibility, if you want, that it kind of came out of this soup of ideas. An ultimate justification is to suffer along with someone else in their suffering is something that I think can do a person a lot of good once you get over the idea that suffering is something to be avoided at all costs. You begin to realize how suffering and understanding your fellow man is something that can change you for the better. Paul talks about in the Bible how we should understand the suffering of Christ, that the ultimate act of God was to suffer for humanity. More specifically, I think one of these ideas that were running around my head when I thought this up was the prophet Jeremiah in the Old Testament puts on an ox yoke over his shoulders as like a symbol that Israel is going to be enslaved for their crimes and the injustice that they've perpetrated in the world. And I was really struck by that imagery that, usually we think of like prophets as people who get up in the marketplace and like yell and talk and these things, but Jeremiah was all just about, I'm wearing this crazy thing that makes people ask questions. And I think there's kind of a depth of seriousness in what he did that goes beyond just speaking. And that I wanted to capture that somehow. I felt called to that dedication and just that almost subtle but outrageous message. And I felt like that is a form of communication that our society needs to hear more often, and that the really important messages should be conveyed that way. And but I realized, this is in ancient Israel, and I can't just wear a yoke around. It wouldn't make any sense. I thought about this for a long time. I was like, what is it to voice a concern this way? And I look around me and I see like the world is not as it should be. There's a million things wrong: global warming and wars and disaster recovery plans that need to be updated and changed, and corruption in the government. There's a million problems, but what do you speak out against? What is the thing that matters? And that is what held me up for a long time. I had a few ideas, but I never really felt like the message was important enough to warrant doing something like this. And kind of intersecting that was this. I've always kind of wondered if I was alive during the abolition of slavery or the civil rights movement, would I be aware enough or skilled enough to pick out what was going on in the world and participate in it? Would I be in a church, in like a Yankee church somewhere, and saying, that's going on somewhere else. That's not something that the church should be involved in. It's politics. We'll just leave it over there and let other people handle it. Or would I be in the South registering voters? Would I be someone who is changing the world and making it a more just place? I've always kind of been curious, and at the same time, what is it in the beginning of the 21st century, what is it in my generation what is that movement? What is that thing that 100 years from now they'll look back and say, why didn't they participate in that? Why didn't they do something? And I had suspicions. Maybe it was poverty, maybe it was AIDS. I thought about it for a while, but I never really was sure. And it's kind of ironic. Bono, the rock star, some people call him a great theologian, was actually the one who told me, it is poverty. It is a world where people are starving to death, and U.S. subsidies are buying grain and letting it rot in the streets. If you think about that, really, there's food going to waste. I'm not talking about what you scrape off your plate, but there are wholesale quantities of food that are not being consumed, that are sitting around in warehouses and stuff, or dying in the fields. At the same time, there are people starving to death. I mean, we could solve this. We could fix this thing easily, but we don't. People are dying. I mean, it's a crazy thing to think that we have so much power, and yet, where's our responsibility? So this is the soup or the mix that was brewing around my head when I went to church on a Sunday, and my pastor was giving a sermon about financial freedom, and he was talking about how when you're in debt, none of your resources are available to change the world or pursue the kingdom of God. And so he brought in this a basket, a bunch of chains, a little bit smaller than mine, in a basket. And he kind of held them up as like a demonstration. He's like, this is slavery. And I thought, it's kind of strange. Why isn't he wearing them? That's what you do with chains of slavery. You don't carry them in a basket. And I was thinking about that, and then he dropped the chains, and I heard them jingle together. And as I heard that tinkling or dinging or whatever noise you would call that, it just happened in my head, and I knew what I was going to do and how I was going to do it and why I was going to do it, and I knew the message that I had, and I knew that it was important and that it did need to be told.